When you think of Venice, what comes to mind? The canals, right? The incredible art, the centuries of history. It's just one of a kind. But this city we all love is facing a set of choices. Truly impossible choices that will decide if it even survives. So today, we're going to break down the monumental challenge that lies ahead for Venice.
You know, the paper we're pulling from for this explainer just says it all right here. The stakes aren't just about money, they're about protecting a piece of our shared global memory. But, and this is the important part, just because it's priceless doesn't mean it's invincible.
And here's the proof. 18. Just look at that number. In the last 23 years, Venice has been hit by 18 extreme floods. Now get this, that's out of a total of only 28 in its entire recorded history. This is not some far-off problem for our grandkids. This is a crisis that's happening right now, and believe me, it is picking up speed.
So what is driving this relentless assault? Well, it's basically a 1-2 punch. First, you've got global sea level rise pushing the Adriatic Sea higher and higher. At the same time, the very ground Venice sits on is slowly but surely sinking. The city is literally being squeezed from above and below.
And if we don't take massive, game-changing action, this is the future we're looking at. Just try to picture it. Nearly the entire city, underwater, every single day when the tide comes in. St. Mark's Square? It wouldn't be a world-famous plaza anymore. It'd be a permanent swimming pool.
But of course, Venice is not going down without a fight. The city's main line of defense is this incredible piece of modern engineering called moats. It's this whole system of giant, mobile sea barriers built to shield the lagoon from the sea.
So how does this thing even work? Well, it's pretty wild. When a dangerous storm surges on its way, computers pump compressed air into these massive, hollow gates. That forces the water out, and they pivot up from the seabed, sealing off the 3 entrances to the lagoon and just holding back the ocean. It really is an ingenious solution.
But here's the catch, the fatal flaw, really. MUES was designed for emergencies, for those occasional, once-in-a-while storm surges. But as the sea keeps rising, those emergencies are becoming the new everyday reality. So what happens when you have to keep the gates closed for days, or weeks, or maybe even months on end? Well, the fallout is just huge. When you close off the lagoon, you're choking it, starving into the fresh seawater it needs to survive, which is a disaster for its delicate ecosystem. You're also shutting down the Port of Venice, a massive part of the economy. And frankly, the more you use a super complex machine like this, the higher the risk something will break. The shield starts to become a cage.
The truth is, MOSE is just a stopgap. It's buying time. Venice has to think way bigger, way more long-term. And the research we're diving into lays out 4 potential futures, and honestly, they're all pretty radical.
Okay, so here are the options on the table. First, you could try to keep the lagoon open just with much bigger defenses. Second, you could build dikes around the city itself, turning it into a protected island inside the lagoon. Third, you could permanently seal the lagoon off from the sea, transforming it into a freshwater lake. And then there's the fourth, and maybe the toughest option to even think about, retreat.
Let's just pause on the 2 biggest engineering ideas, because the difference is so important. With ring diking, you build walls to protect Venice from the lagoon water. With a closed lagoon, you build massive, permanent dams to protect the entire lagoon from the sea. One choice saves the lagoon's ecosystem but completely changes the city's relationship with the water. The other saves the cityscape as we know it, but kills the lagoon.
And this is where you really see the impossible trade-offs. There are no easy answers here, no magic bullets. Every single path saves something precious, but it only does so by giving up something else that's just as valuable. You can save the buildings, but you sever the city's ancient connection to the water. You can save the city's layout, but you destroy the very ecosystem that created it. And retreat, well, that means admitting defeat and giving up on Venice as a living city.
And if that wasn't complicated enough, there's another huge problem. These choices, they aren't on the table forever. As the water level creeps higher and higher, the number of viable options actually starts to disappear. Let's take a look.
Okay, so scientists have a term for this, an adaptation tipping point, or ATP. The easiest way to think about it is like a series of one-way doors. Every time the sea rises past a certain point, one of the defense strategies just stops working. It becomes obsolete, and that forces Venice through the next door into a more extreme, more radical solution. You can see exactly how it plays out on this timeline. At about 3/4 of a meter of sea level rise, boom, the current MOS strategy fails. It's just not enough anymore. Fast forward to 6 meters, and maybe even a city with giant dikes around it is no longer safe.
Each time we cross one of these thresholds, an option is taken off the table, pushing Venice further down this path of more extreme and costly interventions.
So this leads to the obvious and, frankly, pretty terrifying question, right? How much time do we have? When is Venice going to hit that first critical tipping point?
And the answer, incredibly, depends entirely on us, on the rest of the world. If we get our act together and follow a low-emissions pathway, Venice might not hit that first tipping point until after the year 2100. But if we stay on our current high-emissions track, it could happen as early as the 2070s. That's well within the lifetimes of many of us watching this right now.
And here is the real kicker. You don't just decide to build massive dikes or permanently seal a lagoon and have it done by next Tuesday. These are generational projects. We're talking 30, 40, even 50 years to plan and build something on this scale. So if the current system is set to fail in the 2070s, the decision about what comes next, that decision has to be made, like, now. The window is slamming shut.
And all of this brings us back to the real heart of the matter. This isn't just an engineering problem to be solved with concrete and steel. It's a philosophical one. What is Venice really? And what parts of it are we actually trying to save?
I mean, the cost for any of these solutions will be astronomical, tens and tens of billions of euros. But the paper makes a powerful argument that trying to do a simple cost-benefit analysis here just totally misses the point. You can't put a price on a city like Venice. The real choice isn't about what's costly, it's about what we value.
So, what do we choose to save? Which of these values gets prioritized? Is it the stones, the monuments, the physical heritage, or is it the one-of-a-kind lagoon ecosystem? What about the living traditions of the Venetian people, or their economy, or just their basic safety? Every single one of those 4 pathways we looked at prioritizes a different mix of these values. Choosing a path is really about choosing which version of Venice gets to exist for future generations.
As overwhelming as all this feels, Venice's struggle is a profound warning shot for the entire planet. From Miami to Mumbai, from the Netherlands to low-lying islands everywhere, communities all over the world are going to face their own versions of this impossible choice. Venice just happens to be on the front lines.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question, one that goes so much further than just one Italian city. As our climate changes, we are all going to be forced to decide. What parts of our world are we willing to fight for, to completely re-engineer to save, and what parts of our heritage, our nature, and our cultures are we willing to lose forever?